be fun.
Okay, so, hello everyone. So, this is day 25 of the Advent calendar, even though it's almost a week since Christmas. I've been a little bit busy, so I haven't recorded this one, plus I wanted to have my special guest on because we both really love this album, and he loves this album a lot too, and I thought it'd be something special for the video.
Well, Autumn, what is this album?
Well, I had hinted that I knew what the album for the 25th day is, and I do. And this is an album that I think not just us, but I feel a lot of people consider one of the probably best just harsh noise albums, and it's a pretty approachable noise album too for this artist. And I think if you want to get into noise in general, I think this is a really good album to start with. It kind of encompasses everything that's just enjoyable about noise into one album. And of course, it's pretty obvious what this is going to be. I've taught that before. This is Merzbow's Amlux. So yes, of course I had to have a Merzbow album on the harsh noise album calendar. It can't be helped, I suppose.
You have to do some screenshots up close of this. But this, for me, was my first Merzbow album ever. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I've got a little price sticker on it from when I got it at Cheapo, when Cheapo was still a giant warehouse off of Lake Street in Minneapolis. And I got it for $5.95, which is the greatest $6 I've ever spent on any piece of noise, I think. The cover of it is, well, the album is also named after the cover, which is a picture of the amlux building, which is in Tokyo, which is famous for having a Toyota showcase for cars. You can see part of it in the photo, but it's cut off at the bottom. It's actually quite large underneath, which you don't really get to see, but it's still an interesting photo because it looks like a spiral of lights just descending into the sky. The back of it, though, it just looks like a covered warehouse that might be under construction. I don't think it's related at all, but it might also be in Tokyo. There are only 4 tracks on this thing. The first one is Takemitsu, which is one of the most intense pieces of noise that I've heard.
Yeah, it's easily one of the best noise tracks ever. It's funny you bring up the cover. Also, really quick, I forgot to introduce you. This is my boyfriend, Pigswill.
Hello.
He makes some of the music I played for like the record store day. He did the music for the Worn Leatherette cover. And you have a new track out on a compilation, the Christmas Is Not Your Friend compilation.
Volume 9.
And got some other people on that, like Ozawa is on that, and Hypnoskull.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of good indie artists too. It's definitely worth checking out.
There are 25 artists on their total, 25 tracks, and a lot of it is very ambient, experimental stuff with a lot of tape manipulation and other sorts of things, but there are certainly some more creative, harder, well, I shouldn't say creative, they're all creative. There's certainly some more harder hitting ones towards the end, and some more, I don't know, ones with more vocals, and some are more rock oriented, but a lot of it, for the most part, is very experimental and very playful and absolutely enjoyable. Although some of the tracks too are like close to half an hour long, so your mileage may vary.
As they should be. Yours is one of the more harder tracks on there.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. But yeah, back to Merzbow. I just wanted to show off his music for a bit. The cover for me reminds you when you're driving on like the highway and you just see these big like buildings. They're all lit up. And they're very imposing and like kind of intimidating. That's kind of what I get when I look at that. And yeah, the first track, Takemitsu, is insanely intense. I think the last time we listened to it, we were on vacation and we're driving down the Mass Pike, which is a highway in Massachusetts. And it's kind of like the Autobahn of New England. You shouldn't speed, but people definitely speed down it. I think it was like 8 at night, and there was like no one on the highway, and it was like sunset, and we just put the volume all the way up on this car and just like went like very fast.
No.
Do not arrest us.
not quite. I mean, close, but it's like, okay, so the thing about this song is it is very intense. Just everything about it, it has this very percussive sort of loop, and it has this wash of sound that kind of keeps coming in and out. And the whole thing just builds and builds and builds and crescendos into this kind of squealing sound that sounds like it's actually like breaking through your speakers or something. It gets really fucking intense. And then after the crescendo, then it just keeps hitting with this loud and like it just retains this whole power throughout the entire thing of it, and it's just really I don't know, it gets me hyped. So
it's really really hype. It kind of, I feel like the song kind of reminds me of the opening theme to Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Yeah.
The way, like, if you know that track, the way it opens up with like the percussion and like it just kind of explodes and sounds really mechanical. It almost sounds a lot like that. Definitely if you like Tetsuo the Iron Man and like that level of noise, I think this would be a good track to check out. Like I said before, this is definitely the album I'd say to check out, Merzbow. Even if you don't like noise or harsh noise, has so many like different sounds and layers. It's definitely not just like a blur of harsh noise. It's like lots of sound and percussion going on.
Yeah.
And
well,
yeah.
That's the thing too, is that we were driving down the pike and Autumn thought it would be a good idea to put it on, knowing that it like gets me hyped. So I was into it, and of course I ended up I think we were going like close to definitely over 100 in our little rental car, probably scaring the shit out of everybody, being total assholes on the road. But I mean, it was fun.
No one on there though.
Well, we were speeding by them so fast, but no, it was great. But the way that the album is laid out too, so the other 3 tracks after that are Looping Jane Cow Cow and
Luxurious Automobile, right? Yeah.
Crocodile Texas Mix, which I don't know if there's an alternate version. I haven't actually really looked, but the rest of it too, because Takemitsu is so high, the rest of it just kind of like mellows out gradually through the end. Becomes very ambient the more you listen to it, and
especially Luxurious Automobile, it has like, which is the last track, it kind of has like this sound that I can't explain. It like gets lower and lower. It kind of does sound like it's trailing off a bit. And don't get me wrong, these are still noise tracks. They're still heavy. Looping Jane is one of my favorite Merzbow tracks. If you like drone too, it just like, it goes, the first part of the track is just like this awesome like drone, and then he adds noise to it, and then it's like drone with noise, and it is like a loop, like a whole looping track, and it's really nice to listen to. It's good.
Yeah. It's very, Looping Jane too, it's a little unsettling. It kind of like, the way the whole thing ends, it reminds me of, in some ways, of the beginning of the Merzbow EP Dharma, which is, that track is something like, I'm coming to the garden, no memory, something like that.
Yeah. I can't think.
Yeah. No sound, no memory, something like that. Yeah, whatever. But that is like a really kind of quiet, unsettling sort of track that has a lot of like these little kind of hisses happening around in the stereo field around your head. And it's very kind of tranquil, but yeah, a little eerie. So that kind of tone you get with like kind of the ends of this whole album, which is pretty interesting. So it's pretty cool. The whole thing was made in Merzbow's bedroom, which is where he makes most of his stuff. And Takemitsu is sampled from, I can't think of the artist's first name, but his last name is Takemitsu.
So I think it's Tōru or Tōru Takemitsu.
Yeah, I think it's Tōru Takemitsu.
I believe it's the experimental classical artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually read his book. I'll link it down below. It's really, really interesting. This is a Japanese artist who is friends with like, all the famous experimental composers like John Cage and all that. And yeah, he was all about the natural sounds of like Japan. Like he wanted to make all his he would compose with like natural sounds in mind, just letting nature do as it does. That he was very interesting. He had a very interesting perspective on sounds. Mm. So it doesn't surprise me that Merzbow would probably be influenced by him.
Yeah, and I would be able to pick out the samples because it's very noisy.
Yeah.
But another odd thing about this release to me, I mean, aside from the fact that it's like, it comes in a paper sleeve, it's very simply made, and it's one of the only Merzbow releases out of his vast discography that actually has a follow-up remix album, which is fine, but it is certainly nowhere near like the original to me.
Yeah.
And usually that kind of a treatment, from what I kind of gather from the types of music that I've listened to, usually means like there's not a lot of confidence in the originals. They want to try to like change it and enhance it or do something different with it, which also is kind of spoken to me by the fact that this only, as far as I know, has had a cardboard sleeve CD release.
Yeah, it's never had a reissue. This
Yeah.
actually, this came out on Important Records. It's actually the second release ever by Important Records.
Imprec 002.
And I think the first thing they ever released was like a Daniel Johnson tape or something.
Yeah, something out of left field.
So it's very interesting if you know that label. Imprec's good, but I am surprised they've never re-released this, especially because they mostly put out vinyl, and they mostly put out like good Merzbow vinyl.
Yeah. This is just one that nobody really talks about that much for some reason.
And it's and people have heard it always agree that yeah, this is like in the tops. Like this is top tier Merzbow. This is top tier noise in general. It's easily my top 5 like harsh noise albums. Although it doesn't get like super harsh. I think if you listen to a lot of noise, you kind of are able to discern like what's like harsh noise wall, harsh noise, and noise. I think this is more just like noise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, another thing too about it is, so when you're listening to some types of noise, there's certainly certain styles or sounds that will come up that like will genuinely hurt your ears and you want to like turn the stereo down. But this one, like, it has some very intense sounds, but it, for me, like, I can never listen to this quiet. I'm always cranking it up as loud as it can go, and especially for the first track again. And it is like incredibly loud, but it doesn't really like hurt your hearing or anything. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's no like.
It feels good.
Yeah, there's no like high pitched ringing. There's not like, I feel like a lot of people getting into noise. There's some more amateur noise artists like to just do like the heavy feedback, and that's like all they do, or they're ringing, and that's not really it.
Yeah.
maybe some people like that. I don't like that. That actually does hurt my ears, and it's not very enjoyable because noise is made to be heard at higher volumes. And actually, this album in particular is a really good example of Merzbow's work, that the louder you listen to it, the more like textures and stuff you hear, because I've listened to this album many times at totally discerning volumes, because I mean, there's not really a way I can listen to it at like full car volume blast in my own house, and it kind of almost sounds night and day between just like listening to it casually at like normal volume and like blasting it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Also, kind of towards the end too, I think with Luxurious Automobile, there are a lot of patterns that kind of come up in the sound itself, and I think it's just because there are some delays or loops that are used amongst the noise itself. So there are some really interesting parts where you'll get like these feedback tones that interact with each other and blend into like this interesting harmonic, and it becomes part of this loop that creates almost a rhythm, but it will throw you off because it sounds like it's becoming something almost from like a 4/4 time signature, but
Yeah.
then it changes and it throws you off a little bit, but it's still like engaging and really interesting to listen to. So it's very enjoyable, the whole thing. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I know we haven't talked about the track Cow Cow a lot. I think it's a bit overshadowed by others. It's not a bad track by any means, but it's just part of it. Kind of blends in because it's just good and noisy. I remember it being a bit like fuzzier than the other tracks.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how long that one is. I know Looping Jane's like 15 minutes. I can't remember how long Cow Cow is. I think it's a little bit long. No, Luxurious Automobile is like, what, 22 minutes long?
Yeah.
It's long. I think Cow Cow is like 7 or something.
Yeah, they gradually get longer, I think, as the album goes on.
Takemitsu is like 5 minutes. Unfortunately, it's
No, that's
only
perfect length.
Looping Jane's like 15 minutes. I can't remember how long Cow Cow is.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
But they're all appropriately lengthed.
That's true. This album is very well paced, very appropriately lengthed. It's just really good, and this should always be mentioned as one of Merzbow's best, if not his best, to be honest.
Also, if you've heard this and you need more, and you've heard a lot of other Merzbow stuff and still aren't getting what you get out of this one, there's an artist named Proem, P-R-O-E-M, who's been around forever, who has been known for doing like down-tempo kinds of... Some people say he gets into IDM, which kind of, but he's more like glitch, and he'll do ambient stuff and things like that. Very accomplished artist and very much overlooked these days, I think. but he's also done a lot of noise things too. And he has a series, I think it's called just Vault, like Vault EP1, Vault EP2, and I think it's the first one. It sounds very similar to the stuff that's on this in terms of tone. Like, you could tell it's completely his own creation. Like, he didn't take anything from this at all, but just whatever he did to create the sound, it gets to be very similar to what's on this, and it's also very well done, so I would recommend checking that out. Certainly, it's excellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which you own some from, right?
Yep.
What label is he off of?
I think he does a lot of independent stuff lately.
Nice. Does he have a Bandcamp?
Yes.
Okay, so
I think it's
I
just
will.
proem.bandcamp.com.
So I will definitely link that down below because, yeah, I feel like once you hear this, you'll definitely want more, especially if you like heavier music. And like I said, if you like any kind of heavier sounds and you are comfortable with like the sounds of stuff like Tetsu with Iron Man, and you kind of just want to get into noise and Merzbow, this is definitely the one. I would always suggest this one because it's mixed well too. Nothing's gonna hurt your ears. You can probably blast this as high as you want, and you probably won't be bothered by it. But you'll be very hyped. I think.
Punish your neighbors.
Yeah, punish your neighbors, not your ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, it does have a Bandcamp. Alright, cool.
Yeah, I think it is this first one.
Nice.
Whale Soup is the name of the track, and that's on Vault EP 1/4, in parentheses noise, so you don't get lost and get the wrong non-noise release. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to talk about that. The Avant calendar has been fun. I got some good noise albums. I got some okay noise albums, which I kind of figured would happen. Why is towards the end it's kind of been a bit of a struggle for me, just because I work so much, and it's kind of hard to write about or take notes or kind of describe noise albums that are just kind of middle of the road. But when they're really good, you can talk a lot about them.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like a cop-out putting Merzbow as one of the best at 25, but I mean, he is famous for what he does for, a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a lot of bad output or just middle of the road himself as a noise artist too, but he's got a lot of really good stuff too.
Yeah. This is also a really good one to show your friends, just to watch the expression on their face. And if they're not used to noise, just to see like what they think. And I've done it to a couple of my friends. I'd have it in my car, and I would, not while I'm driving, of course, because I don't want to go over 100 again or anything and ruin our lives, but I would turn it on full blast and just like let them listen to it, and usually the reaction is like they just get really wide-eyed and they just kind of start nodding, and then they're like, okay, I get it, yeah, no, this is pretty good, but I don't know if I want to hear it again.
Yeah, I think this one and Merzbow are pretty good, the beginner-friendly ones, I'd say.
Yeah.
And they're definitely one. It is funny to see people that like they'll joke around like, "Oh, it's so noisy," but I kind of like it. Or I even like if you read like Discog comments or YouTube comments on either of these albums, it's kind of like a slew of people like. They came to Merzbow because they know about like the joke or the meme of Paul Steve. Like, this is actually good, or I like this. This isn't just noise. So yeah. They're like, I actually like this.
Yeah.
It's definitely good.
One problem with noise too is like most releases that are noise related, as soon as they're done, you kind of like forget what they even sounded like, at least for me. But releases like this, and for me, again, Dharma and some of the other ones, they do have certain characteristics where you can think of them pretty clearly and like remember what the album was all about. For a lot of other releases, it's really tough for me personally. But yeah, this one definitely sticks out and is memorable. I can hear this in my head just by thinking about it. Like the other ones, a lot of them, I can't do that. Doesn't matter how many times I've heard them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.